Hello there and welcome. My name is Jimmy Wickman and normally I do a lot of Atlassian stuff here, but in this video we're going to talk a little bit more about Invision Community. And I have received a few requests of people that want to know how can I start using the Pages functionality, the CMS part of Invision Community. And obviously I'm going to do my best to see if I can create a little video to show you the basics. And then later in other videos, I will probably go into a few specifics and to show you, for example, how we can reuse existing code for creating tabs, for example, or expands and things like that. But in this video, what I'm going to focus on is I'm going to create a new database. I'm going to create a new section, basically, and we're going to build a blog. Very simple blog or a news functionality for it. So I'm just going to go through the different steps that you need to do to create something that you can use on your own. And it's super easy, so I'm going to make some changes to it just to show you how things work. So let me just jump into Invision Community and let's show you how to build a database and getting started with CMS content. So here we are now in my demo section or my demo page that I've set up. So this one is just a basic setup, and if you don't know how I set this one up, I have a video for it. So I'm going to put a little link at the top here on this page. You can find that video. But what we are going to do is we're going to jump into the admin section here. And let me just, you don't have to see everything else here. So we can focus on this one. So I'm going to go into the admin section here. And the first thing that we need to do in the admin section is to locate Pages. And remember, Pages is a paid addition to Invision Community. So if you only have the forum part, for example, or one of the other products, you need to actually purchase this one separately. Or if you are now on the self-hosted version, then it will, the standard now is that you get the full package of everything. But you need to find this thing called Pages, and it can be located in different places, because at the bottom here you can actually reorder things, so you can actually drag things around. By standard it should be here, so you can find it here. And once you click on Pages, so let me just show you, so if you go to any other part, this is what you will see from the start. So this part will actually change. If you go to Pages, you will see that we have all of these content here. And I already have a few things. By default, you should have one called Articles here. And I played around with a few other things just to see how things work. But just to show you what you can expect or what the different things are. So Pages are the content that will actually have published things on your website. So the pages are the actual pages that you will actually see on the website. Blocks are small elements that you can actually use the page editor here. So if you go to this one and you go to page editor, then you can actually have them as one of the components here. So custom block, if you drag that one out here, that one will allow you then to select a block. So it's a content area or a section of code that you can build that can do different things. And templates. And this is where you will determine how the different databases will actually behave and look. So every template, or sorry, every database can actually have their own display. So they can actually have their own templates. And then under media here, this is where you can upload different images or other files. So you can see it kind of like an FTP server or something like that. And these you can then reference in your code and on the website, so you can actually have them there. And then we have the databases on the content. So this one, if you click on that one, it will show you the databases that you currently have on your instance. So what we need to do when we get started is we need to create a new database. And that's when you do up here. So you can either, if you have, if someone have produced a database before and they have shared it, then you can upload it here. Otherwise, you will click on create a new database. And then you will get this form then, so you can actually add the database. So the first thing you need to do is set a name for it. Maybe we should just go through the tabs very quickly here. So on the details page here is where you have the name and description, and also the key for it, so you can reference this in different ways. And then how you want the categories to function. So if you want to just have one function or one category, or if you want to have many. And also if you want to have it in clubs, if you have that functionality. Under the display is where you will actually tell which of the templates you want to use to display different parts. Language, this is where you will actually have updates for the language files that we have. So if you're building something that is, for example, a news update, then record is not the word you want to use. You want to use news or something like that. Options will tell you a little bit on how the database will actually function, what kind of, if you want to have an RSS feed, for example, if you want to moderate new records, if you want to have reviews or comments, if you want to be able to upload an image and so on. Forums, this is what you can actually connect then. If you want to have, every time you create something in the database, it will also create a topic in the forum. And if you do this one, it will actually, you can select if you want to have it also for comments. That means that you will be able to reply to the item itself, both in the database, but also in the forum. So they will have a sync there. So it will be as if they were the same. And then for search engine, you can then determine then how should you handle. And this is for the canonical tag. That will tell the search engines how should we handle the different content. If we create one here, and let's do something that is, let's call this a blog. If you don't have the blog addition, you can actually build one yourself. So we can just call this a blog. And then you can input a description here. And I will just do this so you can see where it actually ends up. You can choose not to fill anything in, and it will just pick the one from here. In this case, we just want to have it called blog. And then for categories, do you want to have different categories? In a blog, absolutely you want to have multiple categories, but it could be that in the database, if it is for receipts, for example, or sorry, recipes, not receipts, recipes for food, for example. Maybe you don't want to have categories. Maybe you want to have a custom field for it, telling what kind of recipes you are actually having in there. So you can choose this one. And normally I always have use categories, so I can actually choose that one if I want. Otherwise, when we set up the categories, you can just have one if you want and don't display that one on the page. But you can choose which one is functioning here. And then if you want to allow categories in clubs, so what that one means is if you have clubs set up, and you want people to be able to use this one in the clubs as well. So for example, I can now create a blog post, for example, inside of a club. And that category will then be just for that club. So it doesn't actually show up on the blog itself. So then I can then say that no, just use the regular categories then inside of the blog, or sort of the club. They cannot create their own. Or if they want to, then they can say, yes, allow categories to be created in the clubs. And whatever categories then they create in the club will only exist within the club. We can have that to yes for now, or maybe we take no. Let's do it yes. Yes, because we want to show that one, perhaps. And then the page. In version 4, you actually created the page separately, and then you connected it by dragging out a widget. In version 5, you don't do that anymore. It will automatically be created, and you always have to have a page created for it. So what you can choose here is if you want to have a page title that would use the database name, this one, or if you want to use the page title, and then you can actually have a different one. So you can actually have it a different one. It could be my awesome blog. And you can also change then the page file name. So by default, it would just be blog. So it will have then the name and then the URL / blog. But I can change this one to something else. I can have awesome blog, for example. And then I can select under pages here, we have different folders that we can create. So if I choose no parent, then it will be added to the root. And if I unclick this one, then I can actually select different folders here within that one. So for now, we will just have it as in the root, and then we can move this one later on if we want. And in the templates here, we can create different CSS files and JavaScript files that we can then attach just to this database. In this case, we don't have anything that we need to connect, but otherwise we will just select these ones here. We can add these later on. We don't have to worry too much about it right now. But this is how you then can have specific files attached to your database. And this is great when we are going into templating later, because then I don't need to go in and bloat my main CSS. So if I go here and I go to, let's do finish editing. And instead I want to do the theme editor. So instead of adding custom CSS into this one, and that will be then loaded on every page, I can now tailor a specific CSS just for the database pages. That will make the overall site much faster. Or not much faster, but it will be faster. There we go. And then if I want, for more SEO reasons, I can have a specific in the meta tags. I can have the way search engine will present it. I can have the page title here, and I can have a meta description that could be different than the one I actually have here, if I want. And I can also have a meta image. So if someone shares my page, for example, if I share it on Twitter or if I share it on any social media, then we'll have a little image there that relates to the object. If I want, I can have a specific generic one if there is not one in the item I want to share. And then I can also say, do I want the search engines to index this or not? There can be internal databases, for example, that you don't want them to index. Or there could be other reasons why you don't want specific data to be indexed for search engine optimization reasons. But by default, you want the search engines to find this one because you want to make sure that people can search for it online so they can actually find your site. So by this one, we have now set up the basics for it. And on the display here now, and we will have a different options here. And that is how we will portray the actual database. So the first thing is on the index type. So that is the landing page. When people go now to my awesome blog, I will then tell them what kind of information will you first see when you land there. So I can select then and only show featured content. So then anything that I show there, you have to actually make it featured. You can select that you will only show the categories, which is great if you have like a link index or something like that. Or you can show all content. And in this case, we're building a blog, so it makes sense that on the first page, we want to show the latest blog post, basically. And then we have different layouts that we can choose. And version 5 actually have a bunch of predefined ones, which is awesome. So we can select then grid, which will show them different cards. We will have minimal, which will be kind of a list format. We will have featured, and that one will show a background image, and then we will show the title on top of it. A minimal grid will show small boxes with the titles, basically. Rows will be the standard one where you have an image on the left side and some text. Oh no, sorry, featured will actually be the one that have an image on the left side. I will show you, we will update this one so you can see a different one. But the wallpaper is the one where you have a background image and then text on. And then you can choose custom. And if you choose custom, then you will select from something that you have created in templates. I will show you how that one works. But then you will get a list here while you actually have different custom made templates for that one. So for this one, on the first page, the index layout here, I would like to show the top one should be on show the full size. It will be like a big row. And I would like to have, so the first image is featured, and I would like to have it in 2 columns. So these are actually already here, and so they should exist already in your theme. So I want to have the first one here, that is 2-column image feature. And all of this you can change later on. You don't have to worry that this one will be fixed, so you can never change it. And then you will have a similar one for all of these. So this is category listing. This is now when we have clicked into a category. We have selected a category, and so we're no longer on the index page. So then I can do a grid here, for example. As you can see, we do not have custom here. So this one is a little bit weird, but you can change it later. So grid is what we want to have. And then for listing layout, this is now then where we are listing the different items. So this one is when we are on a category, and this is when we are just listing the items. So we can select, I don't know, let's do rows for that one, just so we can see the difference. And then we have the display template group, and display template, this is when you are clicking into a specific blog post, this is what will determine what kind of information you will see. So in this case, we only have one, and this is a standard one called display. And then we have, when you edit something or when you create it, you can customize the form a little bit. So you can actually change the way the form looks. And by default, you have one called just form, and we haven't created one here. And you can click on edit templates, and then it will actually take you to the code, and that's not what we want. And if you do that, you will notice that everything here was removed again. And that sucks. So I will just very quickly pause this one and go fix this one again for you, and then go back to the display template. And there we go. Now we're back, and we're not going to click on this until we are done. So then when it comes to the listing, how do we want to present the blog post? So then you can tell then how do you want to sort this one. So if you take record ID, for example, then it will be, record IDs are incremental. And so as you create new blog posts, the latest one will always be the latest one in the record. And so that's why you can select then only the ones that you can have the order. So the latest one will always be first or second. You can also select it on publish date. So you can have, when did I publish this one? And this one can be good if you are like me working with drafts. So then the ID will actually be, when you publish it, it will actually end up, it doesn't show up maybe even on the first page. So I tend to use the publish date, so then I can control where do I want to place this one and when do I actually want it to show. And then you can sort it then on ascending or descending, so depending on if you want to have the newest first or the oldest first. So that is up to you. And then the number of records per page. So when you look at the listing page or category listing page, it will actually determine how many. So let's do this one. And since we have the top one will be larger one on the front page, that is one number, but we probably want to have, like, let's say 10. And then we can also have comments per page, so we can actually customize this if we want, or we would inherit it. So then it will be using, you can see here, the records per page. So it will use that one. So you'll have that many comments as well per page before it will paginate. So now we have done the display. We tell what should this look like. And then for language here, we can then say blog posts. And we will do the same. I can actually do just this. And the top first one will just be like that. And this is just to update the text files or the language files. So if you don't have this one, everything will just be called record. And that one can be a little bit confusing, because everything that you will then be, if you have 10 databases and you create a new blog post and a new news update or new gallery post or a video, whatever you want to have, they will all say a record has been created or someone updated a record, or that just is very confusing. So that's why you want to have specifics here. What is it that you actually have here? And now let's move into options here. So if you want to have wiki style editing, and this one is not really wiki style editing, there are some suggestions on how to improve this one, but it basically will allow anyone with rights to edit content here. It doesn't really show any records of who did what or things like that. So just remember that basically what you're doing is you're opening it so anyone within a specific group, for example, can edit the page, but you don't have a ton of control of approvals or records of who did what. And this one is kind of, because you can store the revisions, so you can see what happened. Just remember, when you have store revisions and you have things that are updating a lot, it will start consuming a lot of things in the database for you. So this one, if you toggle this one, then you will see that certain functionality will go away. That is because you can select also, when I create now a blog post, I can allow myself then to edit this one indefinitely. And so then, regardless of how much time actually passes, I can still change it. And if you don't do that, then it depends on the member group. So if you have editing rights for 1 hour, for example, then you cannot change it after that. But if you click this one, then you will override that one and say that yes, for this database you can edit indefinitely. Store revisions, it will actually have multiple data objects then to show what kind of changes have been made. If you don't have a bunch of changes, that could be something that you want to have just to see if someone is messing around with it. Otherwise, there's no real reason to have it activated if it's just you doing things. And then you can turn this one off and it will make the database a little bit smaller. You can allow searching, so if someone searches on the website, you can choose if you want this to be available or not. And it might sound, why would I not allow this one? But I'm going to show you a little bit later on when we have a custom field called database relation. So you might have data in another database that is just used to enrich the one that is publicly shown. So for that one, you might not want people to be able to search into that one or even see it. So then you can turn this one off. This is a blog. We want people to be able to find their favorite blog posts, so we will allow searching. And then last action, that is a functionality in the database that will tell you if things have been updated or not. And under the display here, here you can actually have it on last updated. So if you have that one, you can actually select what is it that actually triggers that. So what you can choose then is when an item is edited or a new comment is made. Basically, if someone updates something in that one. You can have it last action is only when the item is edited. So then we remove then the comment functionality doesn't affect this one. Or you can have the opposite then, when a new comment is made only. So you can edit things as much as you want, but it's the comments that will actually tell how this one will work. And this one depends a little bit on how you want to use this one, probably not just in the blog itself or in the database itself, but maybe in the different blocks, or if you want to use it in some other way to update this one. But normally you can select whatever you want. The default one is when it's edited or a comment is made, so any change. If you want to moderate new records, so for example, this is a blog and it's on my website, it's not a community blog. So I want to, if someone uploads or add new records, I want to see who did it and I want to make sure that they are okay before I approve it. Then I can just have moderate new records. Otherwise, if you don't need it, you don't need to turn it on. It's as easy as that. When it comes to RSS feeds, that is so people can subscribe using an RSS reader, so they will actually get updated based on when you publish new things. If you want to have this one, you will have a little extra functionality on the page or on the database itself, where people can then subscribe on this one, and also different search engines can see that one, and some of them are smart enough to actually pick that one up. So I always recommend to have this one, and then set how many items you want to show, and that is how many, when I first subscribe, how many items do you want me to fetch? And also if you have very active, so how many, if you only have like 3 items and you publish 25 articles a day, then the RSS feed will be maybe not have time to actually fetch all of them, and people might miss things. So a good number is probably 10 or 25. I usually do 10. And then when we have, then you can allow comments or not comments. If you have an internal one and then maybe you don't need comments, then you can turn this one off. Otherwise, if you have comments turned on, then you can say, do I want to have comments approved? Otherwise, it will be dependent then on the user groups as usual. If you turn this one on, then all comments will be managed by your moderators. And if you turn it off, then it will be just based on the groups again. And if you want to have reviews, it's the same thing. And if you have reviews and comments, you will have the reviews first. So in the tab, it will actually show in the comments section, you will show the reviews first. So in this case, we don't need reviews on the blog post. We just want to have comments for it. And then if we want to enable record image upload, then we will turn this one on. And we can also set if we want to have thumbnail dimensions. So we can have max and we can have thumbnail. So this one we can customize the way we want to have it. Forums, in this case, we cannot actually add anything until we have published this database and it has a page connected to it. And we don't want to post any topics for this one, so we'll just skip this one. Or maybe we can just, for demonstration purpose, we can add it, and we can use the forum for comments, and we can have, let's do the open forum and just have everything there. And when we post something in the forum, sometimes we want to make sure that people understand that this is not just a forum topic, it is actually something that comes from a database. We can add a little prefix to it, which then is something that comes before the name of the blog post. Or we can have a suffix, which is then at the end. So in this case, let's just do one of these, and we can have article. Then this one will then be published before the title for it. And this one is, if we delete the database record, then we should delete the topic as well. And if you have this turned off like we have here, then if I delete the database, in this case the blog post, then the topic will remain. Just remember then that you will have a little link in the first topic text there, so the first entry there will actually have a link, and that one will be dead. And so if you try to click that one, you will get a 404 and saying that we cannot find this one. So depending on how you want to do this one, if you want to keep the conversation or the comments in your forum, then you will have it toggled off like this. If you feel that this one is only relevant if you have it related to the database, then you will toggle this one on. So what happens then is, if you delete the database object or the database entry, then the topic will also be deleted. So the entire conversation will be removed. And just remember that you cannot delete the topic if the database is connected to it. So if you have it like this and you try to delete the topic, then it will actually say you cannot do that because it is connected to the database. In this case, I think if we delete the blog post, do we need to have the conversation? Yeah, maybe. Let's keep it. And for search engines, so this one is a little bit tricky because normally what I do is this one is set on the database itself. So every article should then be considered their own object. So canonically, you want to have then a category listing, for example. You want to make sure that you don't scatter the SEO too much. So if we read what this one says, so in this say all pages should be considered the same. And it says then, if you have a database that will use long form articles, which are content rich, and you receive pages or comments. So in this case, it is related to the comments object itself. So then it will take the canonical tag will always be set on the first page. So if you're on page 3 on the comments, for example, it will still say that you are on page 1 basically, and in the article. The article itself is the main object. So you don't leak SEO value then from the content, the article itself. The other example is then if you want all the pages to be considered different. So if you take, for example, let's say you upload or you create something for a movie, and the page itself is for movie reviews. Then each of the reviews itself should be the objects, and the movie itself is just is basically the byproduct. There's the reviews that are the important part. Then you want to select the other one. So then it will be then every review will be considered their own object. So every comment or every review will then be their own object, rather than connecting it then to the movie itself. So in most cases, it should be the top one here you want to have. And for our blog, it will specifically be that one because the blog post itself will be the important part. So now that we've gone through all of this, we can just click Save. And the last step here now then is to make sure that we set the permissions here. And by default, it should be something like this. So in this case, we only have the standard versions. So we want everyone to see the database and view the records. We don't want guests to be able to add, edit records. We don't want them to add comments or add reviews or rate records. Everyone else should be able to do that. So then we just click Save. And now it has been created. So now we have this one and the blog, and you will have these functionalities now then. So you can edit it, and if you edit it, you go back into the same form, and you can do all the updates that we just did. You can manage the records, then you will actually see all the blog posts that have been created, and we don't have anything created yet. So this one will be blank. And you can also manage the permissions. So if you want to change the permissions later, you can do that. And you can manage the categories, and you can manage the fields that we want to have in it. You can download the database, so we can share it, and then someone else can upload it. Or you can delete the entire database. And all of these functionalities that you have here, manage categories and manage fields, those will also be available here. So this is now the blog. So you can see this is the blog post, which is the same then as the middle one here. You have your categories and your fields. Unfortunately, this one, once you have like a bunch of these, 25 or so, this list is a little bit difficult to work with because there's will be just a long list here, and it's hard to find them eventually. So then you can always go through the database, and you can click on this one and follow this link here. But for now then, let's take a look at this one and see what it looks like. So we actually have here then, and the first thing we might want to do, let's make it easy for ourselves. So on the page here, we have a bunch of areas. So let's add the blog now as below the tags here, so we can actually see it on the page, and we can start working with it on the front end. We go to System instead, and we go then to Menu Manager. And this is now the tree that we have already. So I want to create a new, and I want to have a page, and I want to select on the page. And my awesome blog, remember, it's the page is called blog, but the actual data is my awesome blog. I will just select this one, and I will use the page name for this one. And I want to show this to anyone I can access. And I want to show this one on the header and sidebar and small screen and so on. And I can select an icon for it. I think this one is super slow. No, it's actually not. Where is it? Let's use a book icon for this one. This one looks good. And I can save this one, and it will now be shown up. For some reason, it always ends up in position 2. I don't know why that one is. I would just want to have this one at the bottom here. So I will put it at the end here. And then I will publish this menu. There we go. If I go to the main page here now, it should show up on the tree here. There it is. And if I click on this one, we will now see nothing, basically. And so this one looks a little bit empty and tired and sad. And the first thing I usually want to do if it's a blog is, or any data where I want to show the categories. And you can see that by default we have this functionality where we can switch over and you will see the different categories. But I prefer to have that little block there so I can actually have the categories. So I go over to the page editor, and under the pages here you have two. So you have the category menu, and then you have the one that is navigation. So these are different. So if you take the navigation or the menu first, I just drag this one out here, and I can actually drag the other one out below this one. You can see the difference from them, like so. And they will say that I need to configure them, but there's actually nothing here to configure other than which devices should they show up on and why. And also if you want to have them on clubs or not. So I just use the standard one here for now. And then I will finish the editing. So if I update the page again here now, you will see that we have different layouts depending on which one you choose. So the menu here, this one will show then the category name, and it will show the number. So if I click on this one, I will actually go to the category itself, and it will be empty now because we haven't created anything. But the records here, it will actually show each of the items that I have below here as an object. And in order to actually show this one, I will create a blog post for it. I will just create a blog post. And by default, we only have these three items. So we have the title, we have the tags, content, and drag and drop files. Four. And then you can select if you want to be notified or not. So we're just going to do an example post. And we can select Atlassian as a tag, and we can have content. And let me just grab a lorem. I will just generate some text here because I'm too lazy to actually write anything. There we go. And now I can add a file for this one. And I will just pick something that looks nice. This one perhaps. That was a little bit big. Format. And there we go. Now I have a blog post here. So if I go now to my awesome blog, you will see now that I have a blog post here. And if I go to my categories here, you will see that the top one here will have just the one. And if I click on this one, I will go now to the blog post in the category called records. And if I click on this one, it will actually show each object here with the title. So the top one should be the one that you use when you have like a blog where you have a lot of content that will be created. And this one is something that you can use instead if you have guides or something like that. You want to have like a category tree or a section tree for it. So just pick the one that functions best for you. And you can see now here that the changes that we made, I selected that I wanted to use a different title called my awesome blog. But the name here on the actual database is blog, and this is the description I have for it. So what we want to do now is we want to change the categories here, and we want to start adding some fields to this one because I want to have some extra fields for it. So let's go back here and go to pages, and then I want to go down to blog, and I want to go to categories. So now we have one called records here. So we'll just change this one. And I want to have this one called, should we have it? Let's have a blog about, I don't know, bees. And then this one looks a little bit furl. And this one is actually the what you will have in the URL for it. So in this case, it depends on what you want to have. By default, you will have the category ID first. If you remove this one, it will actually, I can actually change that one. So it will only be bees, and then it will look a little bit nicer if you want to have it. And the description of the category will show then the same way it will show on the index page where you have the database information. So we can actually have the category description, just so you can see where it ends up. And here we can also select then to have different parents. And this way we can create now childs if we want to have like a nested group of categories. We can have a cover image. So if I again select something here, bees, do we have anything with bees? No, I don't have. That's a bird. Close enough. That one perhaps. And then I can select, when you create a category, you can choose if you want to show records in listing, kind of like what you do when you do forms. If you say no to this one, then it will actually not show any, it will only show subcategories in this section. So then it will act just like a category for subcategories. So in this case, we want to show the records in that listing because this is one of the main areas we want to have it. We can select if we want to have star ratings or not, and depending on what configuration you have, it will be 5 or 10 stars. In this case, I want to have it. If you want, you can add custom permissions for it, so then you can actually have different permissions for this category itself than you have for the parent database. So this could be good if you have like a members only section for it, so guests cannot actually see anything, then you can use this one. And also if users can see records posted by other users, by default this should be on. If you have, for example, where you want to have users to be able to submit tickets, for example, if you want to have like a support section and you want to use a database for that, or if you want to have a suggestion database or anything like that, then maybe you just want the people to see their own entries and not everyone else's, then you can toggle this one on and off. So by default, everyone can see it. If you toggle this one off, then you will only see your own items. And just know that if you do this one, you cannot have guest posting because guests cannot be, then everyone would see their own, everything, because everyone would be a guest. So guest posting is not available like this. This one you can actually allow guests to post things. Do you allow anonymous content? So certain groups can log in as anonymous, and if you want them to be able to create content, then you can toggle this one on. And you can also override the default setting that you have for the entire database. So if you have one category you want to display differently, then you can select a different listing layout and a different display template even. And if you want, you can then set different meta tags and title for SEO reasons. So if you want to name this one differently for the search engines, and then you can have that information here. And also if you want to override database form options, then you can click this one and you can turn off topic posting, for example. But for now, let's just call this one for bees, and that is a magnificent bee. And we can create a new one. So what we can do is we can either create a new one that will be on the same level. Otherwise, you can create on the plus sign here and create a new subcategory directly under this one. And here you will also have the edit for that category, and you can copy or move and delete content if you want here. So for this one, let's first copy this one so we can have one, another one on the same level here. So I can just use the copy. And all functionalities here now will be exactly the same as the first one. So I just need to change the name here, and this one then should be, I don't know, wolves. And we can change the URL slug here and wolves, and then obviously we need to have a wolf image then. Do we have any wolves? Yes, we have. Which one looks cool? This one looks cool. There we go. So now we have two categories here. So if we go back to the blog here now, you will see that we have records here, and if we reload the page here now, you will see now that we have bees and we have wolves. And the cards that we uploaded, so if I go here to bees now, you will only see the bees and the categories, but we uploaded this very nice and cool image for it. And in order to see that one, we need to click on show all categories. And you will see then the cards that have been selected for this one, for these. So now we have created a few. Let's just create a subcategory, just so you can see under bees here. Let's create one called deer. I thought we have, oh, maybe a bear. Bear. Parent is bees, and you can see we can actually do this one. Then it will actually, even though we have clicked on creating a sub category, we can actually override this one here, and so we can actually have no parent, and we automatically move that one out the root again. But in this case, we want to have this one. Let's have star ratings for it. What was it, deer? Cool. And I'm not going to fill out anything else here. I will just do very quickly here so you can see. And now we will see under bees, we will have deer, bear. Oh, we selected bear, and I choose a deer image. Come on. Bear. There we go. So now we have bees and we have bears, and if we go to the website, you will see then that we have bear there as well. Just remember, by default, you have a number of categories that can be shown, and then it will automatically be turned into show X amount more, because there is a limit for it. There is a hack that you can do to actually get rid of that one, but just so you know that if you have 25 subcategories here, they will not all show up in the tree. You will actually have, I don't remember if it is 5 or 7, and then it will actually show that there are more, but you need to click into that category then. If you click on bees here, then you will see the subcategories here. Cool. And so far, if we go to the example post here, kind of very simple, very easy, works perfectly for blogging. But maybe you want to have some extra information here. So let's dig into custom fields for this one. So we go back to our database and we go to fields instead. So right now you have your title and your content. So these are the actual fields that you have. And then you have record image is something that we said, yes, we want to have record image. Remember when we set up the category, it said, and we can also define then the size for it here. And if I want, I can just click here and I can disable it, and now the images will not be there anymore. And I can click there to enable it, and then I will actually get to set the fields here. Should probably not be allowed to add content. And I can also set publish date. So when you publish things, maybe you write something at one date, but you want to set the publish date earlier or later, and then you can enable that one. And I can actually just, so only I can actually do it. Or let's do it so everyone can do it. There we go. And you can also set an expiry date. So after a certain date, then you cannot actually do anything with the item anymore. You can have, so you can toggle on and off if you want to allow comments and reviews. So for certain items, let's say you have a news site, for example, and one of the articles that you're writing is something that is very sensitive. And you know that people are gonna go completely bananas and they will write things that you don't want them to write. Then you can have this one. So then for that post, only that post, you can actually toggle off the comments. So protect yourself from hate storms, for example. And you can also set a comment cutoff date. So you see after 3 months, this one is no longer relevant. So then after 3 months, we will actually don't need to have any more comments. So then the comments will stop functioning. But for us, we want to create a new custom field. We want to add more information to this one. So I will create a new field by clicking Create New. And then this is where we actually have all the information that we want to add here. So you have a bunch of options to actually create all kinds of information that you want to have here. So maybe, for example, or maybe we can go through all of them. So the address here will actually be a map object, basically. So you can have an address for it. You can have a checkbox, so you can actually have true or false, basically. You can have a set, and then you can set the different values. So you can actually have which one should we be able to select. You have a code box, so then you can actually present code on the page. A data object, and then you can actually have different time zone, and you can set if you want to allow time, otherwise it will just be on the date itself. And you can have an editor, which will then show what you see is what you get. So basically the standard editor when you create content. You can have an email address that will be formatted properly. Database relationship, then you can actually connect information with another database, and you can have this one showing back and forth. And we can have member, so you can actually select a member, and you can also allow then multiple selections. You can have a number field. You can have a password field which would then be masked. And you can have radio buttons, and the same thing here, you can have different values. Select box, same thing here. You can select multiple or one. You have for SoundCloud, so you can actually embed SoundCloud objects. And you can set different parameters, and this is the same as you have for YouTube. You can also set different parameters, so you can set if you allow, for example, full screen and stuff like that. And you have Spotify, same thing there. You can embed a Spotify object. Phone number, that will then be formatted as a phone object. You have a text field, and this one is different from the editor field where you have formatting. So you can have bold text and stuff like that. But a normal text field is just unformatted, it's just text. And you can have a text area which is then larger, so you can have even more text. You can upload things, so this is where you can build your own galleries, for example, if you want to have a bunch of files uploaded images, or you can upload different PDF files or whatever you want. You can have a URL, so you can actually have specific format for it. And you can have a binary yes or no functionality, a toggle basically. So for this one, let's use the one that is probably the most powerful one, and that is database relationship. So we can just have this one, and we can connect this to articles in this case. So we can just have this one called related articles. And then we have description here. And then we can choose if you want to have cross-link. So if you have cross-link, now in the blog here, I can select an article and say this is related to this one. And the link will show up in the blog. But if I want it, it can also show up in the article. So then I can have a cross-link here. Then it will actually show in both places. And this is really good if you want to have a very simple way to actually cross-connect different things. And you can select multiple ones, then you can select any article that you want, and you can have multiple ones that show up. And then you can have topic format here, and that is how you use the title, so you can actually customize that one if you want. And then you have field required, if you must have this one or not. In this case, not always. I will not always have a link to it. We'll turn it off. So this one will now create a database relationship with these articles. And now I want to tell how do I want to display this. So I go to display options. So the first thing is I want to have this custom field now, want to have a little key for it. By default, it will just take this one. But I can manually set it also. Related articles. And then you have two views. So one is in the listing. So when you're clicking on the front page, or if you are on a category listing, and then it will show in one way. And then you have the display. This is when you clicked on a specific article. So for this one, I don't want to have the links to related articles to show up in the listing because it would be too much information. So I will just turn this one off. So then it will not show up. But in the listing or in the display view, I want to show it. Now I can display this one in different ways. So I can have it with a label, with a color, and then I can select which color I want to have here. Or I can have just the label and value. Then it will just be, would just say related articles will be the label. And then the title then of the article that I have connected will be in the second one. I can have no formatting, then it would just output the name, just the link and the name to, or the title of the article. Or I can customize this one myself. And this one, then I can use these different variables that are down here. So the label one, if I just paste this one in here, that one will actually be the one that you have here, the title here. That is the label that you will have there. Then you can select the value. That will be the link then, the title of the article that you want to have there. You can also have the form value. And in this case, when you have a relationship, you will have a number there. So it will actually be the ID of the article. If you want, you can also have, if you have, this is a good example. If you have a drop down, for example. So remember, you can have, maybe I can just show you how that one looks. And go back to this one. So if I have a select box here, I will have a key and a value. So then depending on which of these I want to show, go back here. So then it depends then. If I want to choose the key, the form value will then show the key. So the first, the name of it, basically. And then if I want to have the value, so the key is usually in low caps and it's database formatted, so it looks a little bit weird. If I want to have that one, I can have the form value. And if I want to have the actual value, so usually have a nice formatted, it says Mighty Ducks, then the M and D would be capitals, then you will use the value. And you also have, in certain cases, when it outputs code of different types, then you might need to use something that's called the raw functionality here. What it does then is it tells Invision Community to, yes, I understand that there is HTML code in this one, but please paste it anyway. Otherwise, it will just render it out as text. And that one looks a little bit weird. So sometimes you need to add the raw, and that is just to tell them, allow the formatting here to render as code rather than text. And you can also have different logic here. We're going to have separate ones. So for example, you can, if you have a select box, then you can say if the selection that I have chosen then in the select box is value A, then format this in a specific way. If it is in value B, then select it, then format it in a different way. So that way you can, for example, have multiple colored buttons, or you can have different icons that show up depending on which selections you have made. And you also have, if you have an address field, then you can use the address code there, or the short code for it. So this is how you then can customize this one, and you can use PHP here to do different things if you are familiar with how to write PHP. But it's usually better to have it in the templates if you want to have this one specific. For example, if you want to have that I usually have, or that I recently had, was where I don't want to have the link, for example, in the database relation. I just want to have the text. Then I can use that one in the template, and I can format that one using PHP there. But this is very easy. For us now, I just want to have, so we can actually see it. So I want to have a little color on it, and I can then select which color. And in this case, I want to have, let's take something like that. Oh, that one looked horrible. Maybe there, a little bit darker, and then I can say what kind of color do I want to have, and I want to have this one in white then, maybe even darker, like so. And then I can select where do I want to show this one. So when you write the actual content, you can now select, do I want this field to be displayed above it or below it? In this case, I want to have this one below it. And I can also select if I want to have this editable when I view a record. So if you have moderation powers, then you can actually edit this one even without clicking the edit button. Just to show you what this one looks like, I will make this editable. So now I can save this one. And I can now say who can actually use this one. And there you have it. And now I can actually move things up and down here, depending on where I want to have it in the form. And that is only assuming that you have the standard form. If you do a custom form, then you can actually override this one. You can put it any way you want. But for now, you can just say that, where do I want to have this one? Another thing that is interesting to know here, so let's create a new one here. And I will create this one as an editor, and I will say author bio. Just like that, and I can allow attachments. I will do this unlimited. I will have no formatting because it is a... I don't want to have it in listing either. I want to have it only on a display, and I want to have this one unformatted because it's an editor that we want to add. So it would look weird to have it in a label there. And I did not set any key or anything else for it. Really quick, just to show you this one, and I will just going to show you what happens when you don't set that one. The template key is automatically set then from the name of the title here. But what I can do now is I can drag this one up above that one. I want to have this one above the actual content. But I can actually choose, if I want, I can now make this one the content field. And this one will affect a bunch of things. For example, what will actually be shown on the search engines, what will they pick up, and things like that. So if I do this, this one will also be what shows up in the listing if you have the standard one. So I can actually change this one, and I can actually change this one. No, not that one. I need to have another one. I can do the same thing for a text field, for example, if I want to change the title to something else. But now that I have created all of this, let's see how that one looks if I want to create a new object here now. So let's go back, and I will create a new blog post for it, and I will create this one in Wolves. And now you can see that I have the title, I have the tags, and author bio that I now moved up above the content will now show up above this one. And then I will have the content, and I will have the related, and we'll now see that I have this publish functionality here. If I fill this one out now, and I don't need to have, or maybe I can just do a lorem ipsum. Just grab this one. There we go. And content will be the whole one. And now I can search them for related articles, and I have no idea what kind of articles I actually have. So I'm going to open a new one here and check the articles. I probably should have something called example. Yeah, example article. I can select that one. So all I need to do now to create a relationship between these two is just type in, and I need to have 3 letters before they show up. And now I can actually add this one. Do we have any other one? And this is another article, and I want to have that one. There we go. Now I have added 2 here, and if I add a 3rd one, and let's say I only wanted to have this is another article, not this is an article. And then I can just click the X here and remove it. And if I want to set a different date here, then I can just 2023. I don't think I can actually set that one. And 12. Let's do an image. There we go. Now I have created a new one. And you will see that I have now this one. It doesn't show very well. Because it's just text, completely unformatted. And then we have the text here. And then you can see we have a little divider here. And everything we put below there is now the custom field with the database relation. So then we can now have 2 links here. So if I click on example article, you will see that at the bottom here, I will actually have blog posts linking to this article as well. That way we get the by, so it will actually go both ways. Now, not everyone wants to have it look like this. So what you can do is you can actually customize the templates. And you can edit those and change the code for it. So if I'm going to show you, let me go to my page and I can show you how you can customize this. So for example, I've built now a database for my roles, basically a CV database. So down here, I actually have this one. Let me just zoom out a little bit. So these are exactly the same thing that we had in the example there. So this is just a database relation. If I click on edit here, you will see that down here, these are, let me see, area of expertise. No, I actually don't even have it here. Sorry, I have created this one the other way around. So this one is actually incoming. So these I'm actually creating on this one. So if I go to this, which is in my work section here, where I've actually published my different projects that I've been working with. No, sorry. And this one is, I haven't completed this one. Don't just ignore that it looks terrible. But I have done the same thing here for the role. I've just connected it to the senior Atlassian expert here. And that way it will then be connected to the other database. And I have then updated the code. So it will now output like this. I can fetch the different information from that one and I can publish it the way I want just for my roles. And that brings us into the templates. And this one is, it's only if you really want to customize anything. So I'm just going to touch this very briefly. I'm not going to show you how to actually do anything here. But in the database, you will have, by default, you will have then the display, the listing, and so on, the one that we selected. And if you go in here, you will see that there are a bunch of files in here, basically. So this is the record file, for example, and then you'll have a bunch of code. And if you're comfortable working in here, you can customize this a lot. But what you don't want to do is to actually edit the default ones. Because if you do that and you upgrade, and then you will have the same problem that I had. That is that, yeah, everything will break and it will not be fun. So what you do instead is you go down here to add, and then you create a database template, and then you file a name for it. And Matt and the rest of the Invision Community team, if you're watching this one, please make this one better, because I hate that I cannot actually name them properly, and I hate that I cannot actually organize them properly. But what you do is you need to have a name here that only have small caps A to Z and 0 to 9. You cannot have any spaces or special characters, so it doesn't look very well. But then you will select one of the different template types. So these are the same thing that you select on the database itself. So basically you have the category list, that is for the category list page. You have the featured record, which is the one that you will show on the start page. You have the record listing when you click on a category, and you have the display, and you have the form. And these work a little bit differently depending on which one you select. So the code for actually writing it is a little bit different. But basically, if we create one now for, what should we do? Display. And we do it for the display, and we connect this then to the blog. So now I've created one that is called blog display. And these are now the templates here. So if I want to have, for example, the record itself, and I will click on this one, and this one will then show you, this is the code now that we can adjust for all purposes. And just to show you that it actually works, I will just, before here, I will just stay here, and I will save it. And then if I go here and I reload it, then you will see that it will type out here then. So everything that you do in this one now will actually affect the display of this one. So you can move everything that you want around here. You can change this one. You can also have, I don't know if I showed you that one. On this one, for example, I have done different tabs here. So if you want to work with that one, you can also have the different toggles here, which I will show you in a separate video. So you can build all of this one into the template itself. I will just remove this one. There we go. And also, if I want to have the CSS or JavaScript, I will do the same thing. So I click on Add, and I will then select a CSS file instead. I will call this one blog CSS, and I can create it then in an existing group or create a new one. In this one, I want to have a new one called blog. So now I will have a new CSS file that will be completely blank. If we want to, let's take this one, we can inspect. This one will then be, let's have the H1. If I want to change the H1 here, for example, I can just font size 200 like so. Then I can just grab this one. A bit difficult now when I'm so zoomed in. There we go. And in here now, then I can just paste this one, and I can save this one. And if I go to my article here again, and I reload it, this will be gone because I haven't actually changed it. I only changed it down here. But if I want now this one to actually change to font size 200, I can connect then the page and this one, so I can actually add those. And I do that in the database. So if I click on the database here now, and I go to the blog, and I want to edit this one, and you might remember under the details here. Let me see so I can find it. There you go. So down here, I will now have, when you go to the database blog and details, at the bottom here, you will have, these are all the includes. So now I can include this one by just selecting the CSS that I created, the blog CSS. And if I save this one, now it will be added. And if I go to the article again, now that CSS will now be triggering here. But if I go to, this was, if I go to the linked one here, for example, this one is not affected because this is a separate database, and it will only affect the page that I have connected it to. And this one is then even within the club even. So that was a very, very brief introduction to pages and how you can create a very simple blog for yourself, and how you can create different fields and how you can connect it. And I hope this one was useful for you. And if you want to see more of these, please just add a comment to tell me what kind of information do you want me to create next. And I will do my very best to do so. So until next time, I guess the only thing that remains for me to say is that I hope you have a great day and an awesome week.